Hello again, Ottarr the Viking here. Today I'm going to talk to you about weapons and Viking warriors. Probably the image that most people have of a Viking is a warrior, and most men would know something about fighting, but not everyone would be a full-time professional warrior. Some people would do it all the time for a living, others would just know how to defend themselves when they had to. And some people might, as a young man, go out and spend a little while fighting, adventuring, and then settle down to a life as a farmer or a trader or a craftsman. So I'm going to talk to you today about the different types of weapons and armour that we had during the Viking Age. We'll start with how the Viking defends himself. And the most common defence is the shield. You can see it's got this metal boss in the middle to protect the hand, and then wood around it. This is a modern copy. It's made out of one piece of wood, but the original would be made of planks of wood stuck together, often with leather across the front to give it additional support, holding it all together. And it's got this rawhide, which is a type of leather, around the edge, again to protect the edge and hold it all together. You can see it protects quite a lot of my body, but I can't cover everything at once with just a shield. I can't get it down to cover anything below my knees, and even if I take it down to my knees, my upper body is exposed. And if I put it up to protect my head, then my lower body and legs are exposed. So it provides quite a lot of support, quite a lot of defence, but it doesn't cover everything. And in your time, there are lots of these metal bosses surviving, but the wood and leather has generally rotted away. But there are a few surviving examples of the wooden shields as well. Now, the shield, for many people in the Viking Age, would be the only thing that they had to defend themselves with. So the combination of the shield and the various weapons that they'd use to defend their bodies. But probably a lot of Viking warriors would have helmets as well. What image do you have of a Viking helmet? Just think about it for a moment. Did you say a helmet with horns on? Because that is a common mistake about the Viking Age. The idea that Vikings had helmets with horns on was invented about 200 years before your time. People writing books about the past wanted to see the Vikings as savages, as barbarians. They wanted them to look big and fierce, so they gave them the horned helmets to make them look fiercer. But actually, we didn't have helmets like that. We've only got one helmet that's actually reasonably well preserved from the Viking Age that still survives in your time, from a place called Jermenbu in Norway. This is a modern copy of the Jermenbu helmet. If I put it on, you can see it protects the top of my head pretty well, but it also protects across the face. I can see out of it well enough. You can see there's nice big eye holes, but it protects against a cut across the front of the face. There's also mail down the back of my neck. So it protects the head pretty well. Doesn't protect the lower face, but the fact there's nothing too much there means that I can breathe pretty easily. I can see well, and it's not too heavy. So it gives good protection. But probably most Vikings couldn't afford a helmet as good as this. There's a more common type of helmet that appears in pictures from the Viking Age. It's a conical shape, like this, with a piece coming down to protect the nose. There aren't very many of them that survive, and some were probably made of metal, like the Jermenbu helmet, but some, like this, may have been made of boiled leather. This is leather boiled in beeswax. Can you hear how hard that is? When it's boiled in wax, it makes it really hard. It's really light though, so you can wear this all day and you don't get hot, and it's not heavy like a metal helmet. If you wear the Yermanbu helmet all day, you start feeling pretty tired. Whereas this, it's light. It doesn't give such good protection, but it gives some. And these wouldn't survive in the ground. So that may explain why there's so few helmets surviving today, that these were used but just haven't survived. So we've got the head protected, we've got the shield to protect the body. But what other protection have we got for the body? Well, let's have a look. This is leather and it's lined with several layers of cloth inside. So it provides padding. So if someone hits you with something not too sharp, it will take all the force out of it. It'll take some of the force from a cut, but a really sharp weapon cutting across it would slice through it. So it's a lot better protection than nothing, but it's not enough in itself. The ultimate protection for the body is this, and this is a mail shirt. Thousands and thousands of individual metal rings, all riveted together, each one riveted together so they don't come apart. It's very hard to cut through this. Even if you've got a weapon to slice along it, it won't cut through the rings. If you hit it hard though, it'll push the rings into the body of the person wearing it. So what you really need is the padded leather underneath to take the shock from the blow, and the mail on top of it to stop it cutting through. But the combination of it is really expensive. These are very, very expensive because so much work goes into them. It's also very, very hot, and there are records of Viking battles where people took their armour off because it was so hot and then got killed because they were used to fighting in armour and not without it. And if you're used to fighting with the armour on, you may bounce off a blow with your shoulder without worrying too much about it. Try and do it without the armour on, you'll lose your shoulder, lose your arm. So that's what we've got to defend ourselves. Mail shirts, leather padding, helmets and shields. What about the weapons themselves? Well, the most common weapon in the Viking Age is the spear. Just got a spear head here, but imagine there's a wooden shaft, maybe 6, 8, 9 feet long. You can make some which are narrow spearheads like this. They're good for throwing. There are others with wider, heavier heads, and you'd thrust with those. But it's a relatively cheap weapon to make. This one is decorated, it's a little bit more expensive, but a basic spearhead is just a little bit of iron and some wood. So you can make lots of these quickly and easily and cheaply. Another common weapon, and this comes in slightly different sizes, is what the Anglo-Saxon call the sax, we call a sax. It's a single-edged knife with a point. This is a copy, it's blunted for safety. That's the same with all the weapons I'm showing you today. We don't want anyone getting hurt by mistake. And what this is good for is thrusting. It works well with the shield. If you're standing behind the shield, especially if there's a line of you, or with your shields overlapping, so each of you is protecting yourself and the people to either side of you, these are good for just stabbing over the top. Even stabbing underneath is good close up, but it doesn't have a lot of reach to it. Another common Viking weapon is the axe. Axes come in various sizes. This is just a little one. Again, this is small enough and light enough that I can throw this as well as fighting with it hand to hand. But this one is light enough and I can keep fighting with this for a long time if I need to. Again, it's quite cheap to make. It's got a metal head, wooden shaft, and the shaft on this one is protected with rawhide. It just gives us a little bit of extra strength without really adding to the weight. Some axes come a little bigger. You can see this one's got a sort of hooked shape to it. That's really good for hooking over the edge of a shield and then you go in with the axe. Or if you've got someone behind you with a spear, you hook the shield out of the way and the spear comes in through the gap. So the axe is quite effective. There are even bigger axes. There are some where the axe is as tall as I am. You use two hands to swing them. They're bigger and heavier, but they're also slower to use. But they'll cut someone in half if you get a really good blow in. Must smash a shield to pieces. They're very effective. But these smaller ones, easier to use, especially close up. And this is long enough. I can now use this to defend a lot of my lower body as well as my head. So if I've got this and the shield, I'm now able to defend quite a lot. The queen of weapons in the Viking Age is not the axe, but the sword. This is a much more expensive weapon. It's got a long metal blade, it's got a guard to protect the hand, and when you go all the way out with a cut, it reaches as far as a spear almost. And you can use it to protect everything from above your head down to your toes. So now, with a sword and a shield together, I can protect everything from my head to my toes while still keeping the body protected. And they're well balanced. You see, it's quite heavy here, the pommel, as we call it. That's where the word pummel comes from in modern English. You can use it to strike as well as striking with the blade, but it gives balance, so you can turn the sword in your hand quite quickly. This is quite a decorative one as well. We like our swords to be recognizable, but also to show the importance of the person using it. Because I'm a chieftain, I've got quite an expensive sword. There are more basic ones as well, but again, quite decorative. So let's have a look at the completely armed Viking warrior and how that builds up. Most Vikings would only have a shield at most, and perhaps a spear, and perhaps the sax, the knife. And they wouldn't have any body armour. Let's move up a stage. Now I've got a good layer of basic protection. Leather over several layers of fabric. I've got the boiled leather helmet, and I've got an axe to fight with. Also got a shield for added protection. So I'm now pretty well equipped, and probably as well equipped as many Viking warriors would be. Let's take it up another level again. Now you see a really well equipped Viking warrior. I've got the helmet to protect my head, mail shirt and the leather padding underneath it protect the body. I've got an axe at my side. I've got the sword as well, my main fighting weapon. And I've also got the fighting knife, the sax, at my belt for close-up work, or if I lose my sword or it gets broken in the battle. And combine this with the shield as well. You wouldn't want to mess with a Viking armed like this.